LSU sweeps Milwaukee with a 21-7 win on Sunday in Game 3. We'll recap it Locked on LSU. Here we go.
You are Locked on LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked on LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Thanks so much for making it your first listen. We're free, available wherever you get great podcasts, of course, on YouTube as well. So please subscribe. As always, one of the fastest ways to help us grow is by leaving your comments below. So thank you sincerely for that. Thank you for helping make the Locked on Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network. No trouble at all for the Tigers. 21-7 is the final, as LSU sweeps Milwaukee with Game 3 win on Sunday. And there's a lot I want to get into. We saw 4 pitchers, including debuts from 3 of them, Santiago Garcia, Devin Sheeran, and Marcos Paz. So we'll get to the pitching in a moment, but let's start with the offensive day that the Tigers had in putting up 21 runs on 17 hits. A very nice bounce back day for the Tigers after just putting up 5 runs in Game 2. Now, very different type of game, right? 15-5 on Friday, where they run ruled Milwaukee with the late comeback. Saturday, they were facing, in Game 2, they were facing Milwaukee's ace. And it was just a little bit more of a struggle, and you had to get the big time at bat, the big time hit, which you got from Stephen Milam in the big moment. Sunday, this is what you're going to see in a lot of Game 3s. You're going to see, as we all know, you're going to see depleting pitching staffs and higher offensive days. And you have to be able to go produce on those days when you have the opportunity. And LSU, in some instances, created their own opportunities, and in others in this ball game, with 3 errors from Milwaukee on the day during the big innings for the Tigers, allowed the Tigers to really get going. But what I kind of want to focus on, Jake Brown had a massive day today. He was 3 for 4 with 6 RBI. He, of course, had the grand slam. He also had a 2-run homer. He walked. Incidentally, he did strike out in the ball game, but a massive day for Jake Brown. And while I know we're going to focus on the grand slam in the big 8-run fourth, as we should, it was, I'm sorry, the grand slam, I've got to check my notes to make sure I have this right. There's a lot of runs. Sorry, the grand slam came in the 5th. But in the 3rd inning, when Brown hit his first homer, remember, that was right after Schmidt had given up the lead. The Tigers were leading 3-1 after, we'll get to Schmidt in a second, but Milwaukee homered in the 1st inning to go up 1-0. Tigers put up a 3 spot in the 2nd. And then Milwaukee answered with 2 runs in the 3rd to tie the ball game. And you're thinking, man, is this going to be that kind of day? Well, Jake Brown immediately comes out after the pitching change, by the way. Arnold went in for Peterson, who had started the game. And boom, a 1-1 pitch. Brown homers to give LSU the lead right back. And the Tigers would go and put up a 6 spot there in the 3rd inning, which started with Brown's homer. Now, Aaron Beatty singled, York walked, Dardar walked, Cerner had a nice RBI single, which was great to see. Caraway had the big triple there in the 3rd inning as well. Curiel had an RBI single. So you got the production from up and down the lineup, but really you look in games like this for moments where you need a big hit, a key moment like we talked about with Milam in Game 2. Well, coming back to lead off the inning with a homer after Milwaukee had just tied the game, so you wrestle the momentum right back. That's the thing that's sometimes going to be lost in a 21-7 ball game. But Brown had a massive day. And I know, listen, if you're an everydayer and you were here with us last baseball season, whenever we were doing this after every game, we talked a lot about Jake Brown. And I talked a lot about Jake Brown. And you could see why. I mean, it's obvious. He's 6'2", he's 205. He's a 5-tool player. He's a future big leaguer. And that's a guy that needs to be in the lineup every day. I understand why, Jay was splitting time last year with Josh Pearson, who was a great LSU Tiger, and loved to see Pearson have the career he did. But I'm excited to see Jake Brown have the opportunity to play every day, to not look over his shoulder if he has an 0-for-4 day with a couple of strikeouts. If he punches out against a left-handed pitcher, that was a big narrative with Brown, was his splits weren't as good against lefties as righties, which is not uncommon for a left-handed hitter. But how can you get better and improve against left-handed pitching if you're not facing left-handed pitching? That's what they felt they had to do a year ago on that team. Well, this is going to be, I think, a fantastic opportunity for Brown this year to be in the lineup every day, to never have to look over his shoulder, to know he's going to get 250 at-bats in this season. And it's going to be really fun to watch how all that materializes. This was a little glimpse into that. Obviously an overmatched team, but you saw what he could do against an overmatched team. I also really like to see the patience of this lineup. And, you know, they drew 7 walks in this game. Now, you only played 7 innings, but I think sometimes whenever things are going really well offensively, you know, the old adage, hitting is contagious. Sometimes guys can get a little aggressive and maybe over-aggressive at the plate. Well, Curiel walked. Harden, who pinch ran for Curiel and then played right field, walked in his only at-bat. Milam walked twice. Jake Brown had a walk, as I mentioned. York drew a walk and was hit by a pitch. Continue to be impressed with York's on-base percentage and his ability just to get on base and be productive. York in this game was 0 for 1, but again, he walked, was hit by a pitch, and had a sac fly. Dardar walked, also homered. So I love to see that patience up and down the lineup. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Dardar, who, again, that was in the 8-run fourth. Let me make sure I have this correct. I'm sorting through the box score as we do this live. Dardar's homer was part of the 8-run fourth, and he hit it was a 3 RBI, a 3-run homer. Aaron Beatty and Brown scored on Dardar's homer. And, you know, I think if Dardar can prove that he is a solid enough defensive option, he has the early lead in winning that second base job. He's already homered a couple times now, and he's doubled. He does not get, you could see his swing is long, which maybe scouts may not love, but I don't really care. That's projectability for the next level. He swings violently, and he swings with an eye of elevating the baseball. I mean, he is under the ball and elevating it, looking to drive the baseball, which probably result in a lot of fly ball outs on windy days, but it's also going to result in a lot of home runs for Seth Dardar. And he has a violent swing, and I really like watching him play. So it's really going to be, you know, defensively, how does that work? You know, the other thing we saw in this ball game were, again, some late inning defensive replacements and a lot of guys playing different spots. We did see Jack Ruckert go in at second base. You saw him field a ground ball. Started with what could have been a 4-6-3 double play. They weren't able to turn it. However, you saw Klaus go in at second base. You saw Caraway play both second and third. Mentioned Ruckert at second. We saw Pearson start the game at third, and then Caraway go to third, and then move to the right side of the infield. We saw Cerna started. I'm sorry. We saw Aaron Beatty catch. Cerna got the start at DH, and then later Yaman went in and caught. So it's the benefit of playing these games. And I know, listen, I would love to see LSU play a non-conference schedule that included Miami and Cal State Fullerton and Kansas State, name it, Houston and TCU, and name it. Like, I would love to see LSU load up their non-conference against all these power schools that are commonly in Omaha, Florida State, Louisville, whoever, right? But I also understand the need for games like this because of what you saw in this game on Sunday. You were able to get a look at so many different guys in different spots and in different situations. And, you know, for Jay Johnson, the whole objective of the pre-conference, yes, you always want to win. I'm not saying you don't want to win. Of course you do. But the objective is you want to get a look at who you feel like you can trust in certain situations. You want to put guys in tough situations to find out who you can trust. We saw this with the pitchers that I'm going to talk about here in just a quick second. But, you know, you get an opportunity to look at Caraway at both second and third. You get Jack Ruckert in there at second base. You get an opportunity to put Klaus in there in the middle infield. So, you know, it's an opportunity. You get a look at Daniel Harden in the outfield after he pinch hit, drew a walk, and then got to go play right field for Brown. So you get a look at all these guys, Yaman behind the plate. It not only gives them experience, but it gives you a look to know, okay, well, who's most comfortable where? So while Dardar, to bring it back full circle, I think Dardar has the early lead at at short. It's hard not to look at Jack Ruckert, who now has gone in 2 games as a pinch hitter and a defensive replacement, and Ruckert's gotten 2 hits. He bunted for a single, and then he doubled down, went opposite field double here on Sunday. So you can kind of see some of these guys taking advantage of these opportunities, which was great. So the Tigers win 21-7. Again, I'm not saying throw a ticker tape parade because LSU beat Milwaukee 21-7, but there are certain things within the game that were really exciting to see. Now, I do want to talk about the pitching, and we'll do that as we continue. Stay with us here. It's Locked on LSU, your team every day. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill is still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for sponsored jobs. Indeed, sponsored jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for: skills, experience, location. So you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's a stat that says it all. Since we've been talking, companies like yours have made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed sponsored jobs. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. We're also brought to you by Mazda's, moving the game forward for those who show there's more to the score than what's on the screen. On this day, how could we talk about anyone other than Jake Brown? A 3-for-4 day, 6 RBI, the grand slam, obviously plays great right field as well. A guy who is from Louisiana. Love the fact that he loves the state, represents the state, and has done an awesome job, obviously, here in the early opening weekend of the season for the LSU Tigers, already with 3 homers. So how about Jake Brown moving the game forward? Well, Mazda puts that same passion into every model. Highlights make the reel. What it took to get there makes it count. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you. And finally, we're brought to you by FanDuel. Ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live and in person? Well, FanDuel has given you the chance to turn that dream into reality with their NBA sweepstakes. Here's how it works. Use your profit boost on any NBA future, and you'll automatically be entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for 2. That's right, flights, tickets, the whole experience. If you're already looking at the board and thinking about which team can make a deep run, this is the perfect time to lock in. I love futures this time of year, coming off the All-Star break, whether it's picking the team to win the championship, grab a conference title. It adds the extra layer of excitement to every game down the stretch. And not only you could pick your cash, but could also, send you to the NBA Finals. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. So Tigers win 21-7. Let's take a look at the pitching staff, because I think this was another, maybe even the more consequential part of the day. So William Schmidt got the start, and I think this isn't a unique thought for me. I think many of you probably share this opinion. For LSU to achieve whatever it is they're going to achieve this year, they need William Schmidt to live up to his max potential. I think the same certainly was true for Cade Anderson a year ago and Anthony Ianson. You know, you were replacing Holman and Jump. You needed to find a rotation. You had Anderson and Ianson, who obviously were awesome, and then Chase Shores, who started the season at the back end in the rotation, ended up being a real key bullpen arm for you. Like, you needed that guy to find a way to give you key innings. You know, I can go back to the 2023 national championship team, and Jay Johnson was so adamant about that season as well. So you got to find the guy, and remember, for much of that season, Ty Floyd really struggled. But by the end of 2023, I mean, he was setting a College World Series single game strikeout record, right? So William Schmidt needs to be that guy for LSU. He's the highest ceiling pitcher. He's the guy that passed on $3 million or whatever it was coming out of high school. He's the guy with the major league spin rate on his breaking ball. He throws 97. I mean, he's got the stuff, right? And the problem Schmidt had a year ago. Now, he was 7-0, and Jay loves to remind everyone that he was 7-0, which he was. But William Schmidt struggled against SEC hitters. He was very good in the non-conference. He struggled against SEC hitters, and his walk total was too high. So when I look at Schmidt's day, it followed a very up and down path that Schmidt's career has followed so far. Like the first inning, the pitch count got over 20, but he opened the game by striking out O'Connell and then gave up a first pitch homer on an elevated fastball, and LSU was down 1-0. He comes back and strikes out Ross on a full count fastball, and then he issues a 4-pitch walk. And then he strikes out Horn swinging on 3 pitches. So you can see the inconsistency. You know, the battling to get a strikeout, then a first pitch homer, then battling full count strikeout, then 4-pitch walk, then 3-pitch strikeout. He's got to develop a consistency as a strike thrower. It was the thing that I'll go back to Cooper Moore's day on Saturday that maybe was the most impressive. Cooper Moore threw 76 pitches, 61 strikes. He never got to a 3-ball count. Let me say that again. Cooper Moore never got to a 3-ball count. And he's not a guy out there humming 97. It's the pitchability. That's when Schmidt can marry the pitchability with his incredible physical gifts, he's going to be a dominant ace. And you hope that happens as this season progresses. So, you know, LSU got down 1-0 there. Schmidt comes back in the second and issues a leadoff walk. And then strikes out the side after that. So again, you continue to see that up and down nature with Schmidt. And look, the pitch count got into the 70s after 3 innings, and he did give up the 2 RBI single that tied the ball game, which we referenced a bit ago. And at that point, because Schmidt was already over 70 pitches, I thought his day was going to be done. But I'm so glad Jay Johnson let him go back out there for the 4th. Now, Schmidt ended up throwing 91 pitches, and different coaches approach this differently. Some don't want guys extending the 91 pitches the opening week. You want to build up from like 60 to 70 to 80 to 90 by the time you get into conference play, and then you let them loose. But Jay's never been like that. Jay and Nate Yeske let these guys extend more earlier in the season than you might typically see. But I love the fact that Schmidt went out there and pitched the 4th. He gets a 4-pitch strikeout, a full count ground out, and then a full count strikeout. So again, the pitch count got up, but you saw a clean inning in the 4th for Schmidt, which he hadn't done in any of the first 3. So I'm glad he went back out there in the 4th and threw a clean 4th. Now, things were a little hairy for the bullpen. We saw 3 guys make their debuts. Santiago Garcia, the Oregon transfer, Devin Sheeran, the Mount St. Mary's transfer, who missed last year with a torn ACL, and then Marcos Paz, who is the freshman phenom, a guy who, but for an injury in high school, very likely, he had TJ, Tom John, very likely he would have been a straight to the pros guy. But you saw it with the 97 that Paz threw. So let's take them one by one here as we talk about these pitchers. Santiago Garcia really struggled. He replaced Schmidt in the 5th, and it was candidly just not very good. Now, this is an experienced guy from the left side that they need to be a key arm out of that bullpen. But he strikes out Kibler to start the inning, which looks great. And then he gives up a double, walk, 3-run homer. And then he's out of the game. So it started great with a strikeout, but the walk is really what compounded the issues there for Santiago Garcia, as we saw often this weekend. So they bring in Devin Sheeran, and this was awesome. Here's a 6'5" guy that throws upper 90s, and he goes strikeout to get out of the inning and limit the damage. So that's a not great first outing for Santiago Garcia. What we totally expected from Devin Sheeran, a guy that was going to go there and pump velo from the right side, and it was fantastic to see. Similar, and we've talked about it coming into this season, that Sheeran, Fontenot were the guys that were kind of eyeing as setup closer setup, 8, 9, 9, 8, however we go with those two. Well, Fontenot finished the game for you on Saturday, when there was trouble brewing. And then Sheeran comes in and puts out the fire on Sunday. Again, the game wasn't close at that point, but Sheeran still came in that moment after Garcia gives up the 3-run homer and goes strikeout. So you'll love to see that. And then Marcos Paz got to throw 2 innings, and it's almost like watching a baby giraffe, man, learn to walk. And I don't mean that in any way to be disrespectful. Like, Paz throws 97. He's so imposing on the mound. And he ended up striking out 3 in 2 innings. And you're just going to live with some of these struggles. It's another one of the reasons why it's important to Jay that they play these games, because it gives these guys an opportunity just to go stand on the mound at the box when it's full facing another team. You can play intra-squads all day and night, but some guys just have to do it for real when there's fans there to be able to see how they react and what it looks like. Can they slow their heart rate? Can they have a repeatable delivery? So getting the opportunity to go do that for Marcos Paz as a freshman, I think was awesome. He's going to be fine. He's going to be great. You can tell all the ability in the world is there. But he did give up 4 hits. He did walk a couple, but he also struck out 3 in the 12 batters that he faced. Now, the moment that I thought was key for Paz was in the 6th, because he loaded the bases in the 6th and came back with the bases loaded and went strikeout. By the way, on a full count breaking ball, got a strikeout looking through a full count breaking ball with the bases loaded. So he gives up a leadoff single, then a 4-pitch walk, then goes strikeout, walk. So there's 1 out and the bases are loaded and it's iffy, but he gets the strikeout, on a 3-2 pitch, on a 3-2 breaking ball. So to have the confidence to throw your breaking ball with the bases loaded in a full count, where if you miss, a run scores, I thought that was key. And then he got the ground out to first base to get out of the inning. So he gave up, despite the fact that he gave up a single and walked 2, he didn't allow a run. I thought that was great. He went back out there and pitched the 7th and got himself into trouble again, but did allow a run in the 7th, where he allowed the leadoff single. Again, you allow the leadoff man on, they're going to score 50% of the time. Then it was a fielder's choice, single, and then the fly out was the sac fly, the sacrifice fly that scored the final run of the game. And then he ended the game on a 3-pitch strikeout. So all things considered, you went and swept Milwaukee. No one is going to be excited about sweeping Milwaukee, an overmatched team that hasn't practiced outside. But I think the most important thing about this weekend is you got so many guys, innings and at-bats. Because the games became so lopsided, you got a lot of your younger guys the opportunity to play in the field and to get at-bats. Like, we all know what Stephen Milam and Jake Brown and Stanfield and Curiel, like, we all know what those guys are and what they're going to be. I love the opportunity to get other guys the opportunity to play. Aaron Beatty's got to get out there and prove he can be the everyday catcher, which awesome weekend offensively for Aaron Beatty. A little up and down defensively, but overall very solid. I love how much they were able to flip the infield. Caraway had a big triple in this ball game, which was awesome, but the fact that we saw Caraway play both third and second, I think at the end of the game, I think he actually went to short at the end of the game, but to see all the different defensive replacements, defensively with a lot of the young guys getting in, and Dardar and Caraway and Reeves playing both sides of the infield. Jay's going to have options. He's got to find out who's going to fit best where to get the best offensive lineup and the best defensive lineup. And the weekends like this were an awesome opportunity to take that step. It's not done, because Tigers are going to play Kent on Monday. They'll take Tuesday off. They'll play Nichols on Wednesday. Then they'll head to Florida for a 3-game round robin starting on Friday. So 8 games in 10 days. Tigers will play on Monday with their 4th game in as many days. And, we'll be right here all along the way here on Locked on LSU. Hey, do me a favor. Nearly 500 of you watching live. If you're with us live on YouTube, please take a quick second, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. If you're on podcast, thank you so much for being there with us as well. Please subscribe on your favorite podcast app, rate us, leave a review. By the way, if you are on YouTube, I know I've mentioned this before, something you can do that would help me tremendously is even if you watch on YouTube, which I'm very grateful for, please go into your favorite podcast app and just subscribe to the audio podcast as well. If it's iTunes or Spotify or whatever your favorite podcast app is, I would greatly appreciate it. Even if you keep watching on YouTube, but if you would still subscribe to the audio podcast as well, that would be a huge help. So thanks so much for that. Excited that baseball season is here. Y'all, we'll be here after every single LSU game, getting you your post-game live commentary. Until next time, it is Locked on LSU, your team every day.